I walked slowly up the mountain path of the Qingyun sect, leading a little girl by the hand. I wore my deep blue Taoist robes, feeling the weight of the climb. Senior brother Ouyang, how much further? The little girl gasped. Her delicate, doll-like face was covered in sweat, and her cheeks were puffed out like a frustrated squirrel. I stopped and looked up at the sun, doing some quick mental math. Don't worry, I said calmly. At this pace, we'll definitely reach the foot of our peak by tomorrow evening. Tomorrow evening? Her face went pale. She didn't say another word. She just plopped down on the ground, refusing to move another inch. The mountain road ahead snaked upward, seemingly endless. Seeing her acting like she'd dropped dead on the stone steps, I sat down next to her and started studying my new junior sister. As I looked at her, a translucent panel appeared in my vision, a system interface only I could see. Name, Hututu. Species, nine-tailed celestial fox, juvenile. Cultivation, golden core level 5. Root bone, god tier. Charm, 7. Luck, 8. Music talent, 10. Special skill, alluring presence, not yet awakened. Evaluation, a top-tier beast girl who hasn't reached maturity yet. I felt a surge of joy. Compared to the other rebellious children back on the mountain, a normal beast girl felt like a blessing. My master, who I hadn't seen for a year, had dumped Hututu on me earlier today. He'd given me a few brief instructions and then vanished in a hurry, looking like he'd just escaped a massive headache. Now, it was just the two of us. Part of me wanted to see what Master was up to, and the other part wanted to see when this little girl would finally show her foxtail. I knew she wasn't human the moment I saw her. She was a spirit fox with an innate Tao body. With that golden attribute panel hovering next to her, it was impossible to miss. Still, Master was the head of a peak in the Qingyun sect. If news got out that he'd taken a fox demon as a disciple, it would be the biggest scandal in the cultivation world. Senior brother, what are you staring at? Hututu snapped, glaring at me. She clearly thought I was useless. I looked decent enough, but I lacked any grace. I hadn't used flight or even a simple wind spell to help her travel. I'd just made a 5-year-old girl hike for 2 hours straight. I could see the suspicion growing in her eyes. She probably thought I was some kind of creep who liked little kids. She was a princess of the Fox clan, so she was naturally beautiful, but she was only 5. I watched her wrap her arms around herself and clench her fists like a defensive hamster. Senior brother, I asked you a question. What are you looking at? She asked again, her voice wary. I snapped out of my thoughts and coughed awkwardly, looking away. My mind was racing. Master's last name was who? This girl's last name was who? Was she his secret daughter? Had my master actually hooked up with a fox? The thought was explosive. My master was known as a legendary playboy in the cultivation world, and I often had to clean up his messes with various mistresses, but this was next level. If those women found out he had a secret child with a fox demon, they'd tear him apart. A slow grin spread across my face. I had a massive piece of leverage now. I could ask for anything. New junior sister plus master's deadly secret equals profit. Junior sister, I said, putting on my most charming, brotherly smile. You're new to the Qingyun sect. I'm just taking you the long way so you can learn the paths. That way, you won't get lost when you go to lectures later. Hututu shook her head and started reciting facts like a textbook. Master already told me. The Qingyun sect is one of the 9 great immortal sections. It has over 1,000 inner disciples, 100,000 outer disciples, and spans 72 peaks across 100,000 kilometers. It's a land of spiritual energy and treasures. For most people, getting into the outer sect is harder than climbing to heaven. I blinked, stunned. Is this place really that great? I thought anyone could get in. When I first crossed over into this world, Master had literally fallen from the sky and begged me in tears to be his disciple. I thought he was a con artist. I decided to keep my mouth shut about which peaks were full of idiots and where to find free food. Instead, I cleared my throat. Right? Exactly what I was going to say. Since you know the basics, let's talk about our specific peak. This is important. Hututu sat up straight, listening intently. I held up one finger, my expression dead serious. On our mountain, besides the old man, I am the boss. She stared at me, waiting for more. That's it. That's it, I confirmed. Follow my lead, and you'll be fine. My rules are the only rules. As for the other disciples on the mountain, stay away from them. They're all mentally ill. I felt a pang of regret. If I had established my authority when those other brats first arrived, my life as the eldest senior brother would be much easier. Oh, it seems senior brother has quite a prejudice against us. A soft, warm voice drifted from behind me. It sounded gentle, but the underlying tone was ice-cold. My body went stiff. I turned around slowly, forcing a smile as I saw a young man in Taoist robes standing there. Oh, hey there, Xiaobai, I stammered. You're out for a hike too? What a coincidence. I stood face to face with the young man. His name was Bai Feiyu, and just like with everyone else, a status panel floated in my vision. It told me everything I needed to know. He was the reincarnation of an ancient sword immortal. His cultivation was already at the 5th level of foundation building. His bone structure and charm were off the charts, but his luck was a pathetic one. His exclusive skill? All things are my sword. Every time I looked at his stats, I couldn't help but sigh. This kid was the textbook definition of a protagonist. Well, except for that luck stat. With luck that low, he wasn't a child of destiny. He was a walking disaster magnet. Beside me, Hututu's eyes lit up like stars. Bai Feiyu was undeniably handsome. He had sharp brows, eyes that shone like night orbs, and a gentle smile that felt like a spring breeze. Dressed in snowy white robes and cloud-stepping boots, with a 3-foot green steel sword hanging at his waist, he looked like a god who had descended to the mortal realm. He literally seemed to be standing in a glow of divine light. So handsome, Hututu muttered, her jaw dropping. I could practically hear her 5-year-old heart thumping. Compared to me, this guy was exactly the senior brother she had dreamed of. Her chubby cheeks turned red, and a tiny bit of drool actually escaped the corner of her mouth. Bai Feiyu didn't even look at her. He kept his eyes on me, smiling. But I felt like 1,000 invisible flying daggers were shooting out of those eyes, trying to pin me to the spot. Xiaobai, let me introduce you, I said, clearing my throat to break the tension. This is our new junior sister, Hututu. Master brought her back. Tutu, this is your 4th senior brother, Bai Feiyu. Senior brother. Tutu stammered, looking like she'd just won the lottery. I love senior brothers the most. She looked like she was floating on a cloud of cotton candy. At 5 years old, she was already wearing the kind of doting grin you'd expect from a middle-aged auntie. Bai Feiyu finally shifted his gaze to her. His brow furrowed instantly. To his specialized eyes, her true form was impossible to hide. What is Master thinking? Bai Feiyu snapped, his voice cold. Why did he bring back AFO? MMPH. I lunged forward and slammed my hand over his mouth before he could finish the word fox. Bai Feiyu's hand flew to his hilt, ready to summon his sword and chop my fingers off. I reacted fast, pinning his hand against the pommel and leaning into his ear. Master gave strict orders, I whispered urgently. Don't mention her identity in front of her. Her name is Hututu. Master's name is Huyun. Get it? Bai Feiyu's eyes widened. He looked at me in pure shock. They both had the surname Hu. He clearly went down a rabbit hole of dark thoughts. Was this fox girl the master's illegitimate daughter? Had the old man captured a fox demon to assist his cultivation? He looked like he was questioning if the world of cultivation had always been this scandalous or if he was just getting too old to keep up. He slapped my hand away and looked at Tutu with a complicated expression. Since you've joined the sect, practice hard, he said stiffly. And stay away from the eldest senior brother. He's mentally ill. He sounded like a grumpy old man in a teenager's body. Tutu, being a spirit fox, was sensitive to emotions. She could tell he didn't like her. She felt a wave of disappointment. Was he like the uncles back at Green Hill? The handsome ones who only hung out with other handsome guys and ignored the pretty girls? Hey, she's just a kid. Why so serious? I reached out and pinched Bai Feiyu's cheeks, trying to force a smile onto his face. Flash. Bai Feiyu moved like lightning. He grabbed my wrist, twisted it, and slammed me face first against the stone wall in a perfect grappling move. Ow, ow, ow. You brat. I'm your eldest senior brother. I screamed in pain. Tutu watched us, a look of realization dawning on her face. She thought she understood now. He wasn't cold because he hated her. He was cold because he was afraid she'd steal me away. This sect was definitely weird. After I begged for mercy, Bai Feiyu finally let me go. I rubbed my sore shoulder, wincing. If you're not up there practicing, What are you doing down here? Did you come to welcome us? He shook his head. Today is the sect leader's lecture. I have to attend. He's furious with our peak's attendance record. He said if we skip again, or if we refuse to join the sect competition next month, he's going to expel us and master. That old fossil? I scoffed. All he does is drone on about the Tao that can be spoken. He talks until he falls asleep. Why go? Let him expel us. Besides, I have a recording of him getting kicked out of Jade Maiden Peak last week. Someone caught it on a recording stone and sent it to me. You can see the footprint on his face perfectly. Bai Feiyu nodded slowly. He knew I had friends all over the 72 peaks of the Qingyun sect. Since I had dirt on the sect leader, there was nothing to fear. He didn't want to waste time anyway. He was at a critical stage of polishing his sword heart, something he hadn't perfected even in his past life. He looked at me, his thoughts drifting. Nobody knew his secret, that he was a reincarnated immortal. He had joined this sect for resources, but for the last 5 years, I had constantly derailed his calm, meditative state. Yet, despite his annoyance, he secretly enjoyed the chaos. It allowed him to experience a youth he never had. I'm going back then, Bai Feiyu said, his face returning to its usual calm. Wait, I called out, my expression changing instantly from annoyed to flattering. What now? He asked. I heard your sword riding skills have reached a new level, I said, rubbing my hands together. How about you show your big brother a little demonstration? Bai Feiyu looked at me with a half smile, his eyes full of mischief. To open your eyes? Or do you just want me to carry you? Oh, I forgot. You're still in the qi refining stage, senior brother. You can't fly a sword yet. My face turned bright red. I coughed awkwardly, trying to save face. I'm just not in a hurry to level up. Besides, shouldn't fellow disciples look out for one another? I shook my head, acting like a wise scholar. Bring me along, and I shall be your guide. Suddenly, the Qingfeng sword at Bai Feiyu's waist let out a sharp hum. It transformed into a streak of light, sweeping him up and heading straight for me. My eyes widened. This brat was trying to murder his own brother. I jumped to the side just in time as he zoomed past. Bai Feiyu didn't stop. He reached down, grabbed Tutu by the hand, and pulled her onto the blade. She let out a high-pitched scream as the sword turned into a green rainbow, streaking toward the distant peaks. If you aren't back by sunset, senior brother, we aren't saving any dinner for you, his voice echoed through the valley. I stood there alone, fuming. Damn it, I need to restore the dignity of the first senior brother. I started the long trek up the mountain path on foot. As I hiked, a crisp sound rang out in my mind. Asterisk ding. Your AFK rewards have arrived. You have gained 1,000 points of true chi. Asterisk. I sighed and accepted the reward. A faint, warm current flowed from my belly to my limbs before vanishing. I opened my mental status panel to check my stats. Name, Ouyang. Identity, Transmigrator. Cultivation, Qi Refining, Level 9. Root Bone, 1. Charm, 6. Luck, 1. Special Trait, True Qi Value, 906,962,543. Evaluation, you are the worst host I have ever carried. This was my strongest AFK system. As long as I stayed still or did nothing, I gained true chi automatically. The downside, if I moved or worked, it stopped. When I first arrived in this world, I looked down on it. I told myself I'd reach the top with my own talent and vision. I even swore I'd rather jump off a cliff than rely on a lazy system. But now, man, it felt good. One day of hard cultivation couldn't match 10 minutes of being AFK. I used to tell myself I wasn't a moocher, just a guy who liked to nap. Now I've accepted it. I'm a cheater. However, as time went on, I noticed a massive problem. The system didn't let me level up. I could collect infinite true chi, but I couldn't break through the bottleneck. In this world, cultivation had 9 realms: Qi Refining, Foundation Establishment, Golden Core, and so on, all the way to Tribulation Transcendence. I hit level 9 of Qi Refining almost instantly, but then I hit a wall. I couldn't condense my Qi into liquid, let alone form a Golden Core. I went from a one-night genius to a permanent Qi refiner. It hurt. You aren't even a real cultivator until you hit Foundation Establishment. That's when you get the cool treasures, the high-level spells, and the ability to fly. My dream of soaring through the clouds with a beautiful girl in my arms was dead. The other problem was my lifespan. Chi refining kept me looking 18, but it didn't give me the thousands of years of life that high-level experts had. At most, I'd live to be 200. For a cultivator, 200 years was a blink of an eye. I shook my head to clear the depressing thoughts. I pulled a yellow paper talisman from my pocket. It was a Godspeed talisman given to me by my third junior brother, Chinchangshan. I injected a bit of my massive pool of chi into it. Dinner is more important than destiny, I muttered. The talisman burst into flames. A golden light wrapped around my legs, and a sudden mountain wind pushed me from behind. I took off, my legs moving like a blur as I raced toward the summit of our small peak. By sunset, I finally reached our courtyard at the very edge of the Qingyan sect. I wiped away some imaginary sweat, straightened my clothes, and pushed the door open. In the center of the yard stood a massive tree. Bai Feiyu was standing on a branch, his white robes fluttering in the breeze as he stared poetically at the setting sun. He looked like a fallen immortal. Hu Tutu was curled up in a chair below, staring up at him with stars in her eyes. Look at this guy, I thought bitterly. Only monkeys spend all day in trees. Then, a delicious scent wafted from the kitchen. My mood lifted instantly. I sat down next to Hu Tutu and gave her a sharp flick on the forehead. Stop staring, I said. Good looks won't fill your stomach. Ouch. Senior brother, that hurt. She rubbed her head, pouting and looking like she wanted to pounce on me. Before she could, a boy with a kind, honest face walked out of the kitchen carrying a tray of food. He saw me and gave a warm smile. Senior brother, you're back, he said. The food is ready. I stood up and walked over to the boy, a wide grin stretching across my face. I took the food tray from his hands. Chongsheng, my man, I said. What did you whip up today? Did you include that three-eyed spirit chicken I swiped from the Spirit Beast Peak? I did. Qin Chongsheng replied quickly. His expression was cautious, almost timid. Didn't you say second senior brother is at a critical point in his breakthrough? I wouldn't dare forget something you specifically ordered. I looked at his nervous face and shrugged it off. This junior brother of mine was always like this. No matter how many times I told him to relax, he couldn't change. I turned my attention to Hu Tutu. This is our new little junior sister. Did Little Bai introduce you yet? We've greeted each other, Qin Chongsheng said with a sigh of admiration. Master's vision is as sharp as ever. Even with Master not around, his voice was full of genuine reverence. If I couldn't see his character status panel, I really would have believed he was just a simple, honest guy. Name, Qin Chongsheng. Identity, Reincarnator. Cultivation, Golden Core Realm, Level 7. Bone Structure, 8. Charm, 9. Luck, 7. Array Talent, 10+1. Special Skill, Living Puppet Technique. Evaluation, a paranoid eagle with a severe persecution complex. A reincarnator. My junior brother had actually come back from the future. I used to think Bai Feiyu being the reincarnation of an ancient sword immortal was crazy enough, but traveling back in time was even more mind-blowing. Maybe because he died a miserable death in his past life, he was now pathologically cautious. I suddenly reached out and pinched Qin Chongsheng's cheek. Junior brother, I said. The you standing here right now? It's not a puppet, is it? With his insane array talent, the puppets he made could even fool my system. Qin Chongsheng's body went stiff. He took a subtle step back and forced a smile. How could that be, senior brother? Why would I use a puppet in our own courtyard? The moment he said that, I knew. This was definitely a puppet. This kid's paranoia was getting worse by the day. Dinner is ready. Please enjoy, Qin Chongsheng said. He excused himself and hurried back to his room. Hu Tutu leaned in and whispered to me. Senior brother, that guy is weird. He doesn't have the breath of a living person. And even though I just looked at his face, I've already forgotten what he looks like. Don't worry about it, I told her. He's a bit strange, but he's a good guy. Just remember one thing. In this sect, you can mess with anyone, but never provoke your third senior brother. I spoke with heavy seriousness. Hu Tutu nodded, though she looked like she didn't quite believe me. If you do, I added, you won't even know how you died. The hair on her neck stood up. She felt it too. That smile earlier had felt fake. Even though they were both in the Golden Core realm, Her instincts told her she would die instantly if they fought. Despite her powerful bloodline, she realized this third senior brother was a massive problem. She clutched her bowl and silently moved Chen Changsheng to the top of her most dangerous people list. Just then, Bai Feiyu hopped down from the tree. He looked at us and asked, "Is second senior brother still in seclusion?" "I guess," I replied, dropping a chicken leg into Hututu's bowl. He said he had a new insight into the way of the sword. He's been in there for 3 days. Bai Feiyu nodded, but his gaze lingered on the closed door. As a former ancient sword immortal, the only person who had ever made him feel pressured was this teenage boy. To Bai Feiyu, it felt like, while he was born for the sword itself was created for our second senior brother. Suddenly, a piercing flash of sword light erupted. It tore through the roof of the room, shooting straight into the clouds. The sharp light acted like a pillar of fire, illuminating the darkening sky. Sword intent. Bai Feiyu's chopsticks hit the floor. He stared in shock. He was still polishing his sword heart. Yet this teenager had already grasped his own unique sword intent. That was something usually reserved for masters of the soul manifestation stage. Hututu curled into a ball, shivering from the sheer pressure. I just took a sip of my chicken soup and smacked my lips. This three-eyed spirit chicken was delicious. No wonder those guys at the Spirit Beast Peak guarded them so closely. I looked at the shattered tiles and flying debris and sighed. "Lung Ching Song," I yelled toward the room. "You brat. You're fixing that roof tomorrow. That's the 3rd time this month." A boy dressed in black stepped out of the ruins, clutching a sword to his chest. He was surrounded by a killing intent so sharp it made my skin crawl. His breathing was ragged but stabilizing. He opened his eyes, looked at me, and gave a stiff nod. "Oh," he muttered. I felt a headache coming on. This was my second senior brother, Lung Ching Song. He was the biggest source of stress on this mountain. Name, Lung Ching Song. Identity, son of the plain, protagonist. Cultivation, Golden Core Realm, level 7. Bone structure, 10+1. Charm, 10. Luck, 10. Sword talent, 10+1. Special skill, I am the sword. Evaluation, a protagonist with a slight case of social anxiety. Every time I saw his stats, I wanted to curse. Some people are born in Rome. Others are born as the cattle pulling the wagon. It was infuriating, but I had raised this kid myself. I remembered finding him when he was an orphan, right after I got my system. One look at his stats and I decided right then, I was adopting him. Getting close to the protagonist was my only way to survive this world. Back then, I was 5 and he was 3. We wandered the streets together until we met our master, Hu Yun. He practically begged us to be his disciples. I still remember us sitting in a field, eating stolen sweet potatoes, when this immortal-looking Taoist dropped from the sky. "Young man," he had said to me, "fate has brought us together. Will you be my disciple?" At the time, I actually wanted to say no. I had a system and a literal protagonist in my arms. Why would I need some random old man? I never expected Master Hu Yun to be so persistent. When I first met him, I flat out refused his offer to be his disciple. Lung Ching Song, who was just a little kid back then, instinctively hid behind my back, staring at the old man with wary eyes. "I'm begging you," Hu Yun had pleaded, looking at me with total sincerity. "Just let your younger brother be my disciple." I looked up at him, my 5-year-old face full of hope. "What about me?" Hu Yun patted his chest confidently. "I can guarantee you'll grow up to be a wealthy, successful merchant. You'll live a life of luxury." "I want to practice cultivation too," I snapped back, refusing him instantly. Hu Yun looked a bit awkward. "Compared to your brother, you're better off just being a rich man." "If you don't take my brother, I won't go either," Lung Ching Song muttered from behind me. That was the first time I'd ever heard him speak such a long sentence. It was early autumn, the season of harvest. That was when Hu Yun finally gave in and took us both as his disciples. We officially stepped onto the path of cultivation and were brought back here, to the Qingyun sect. When we first arrived, even the sect leader was alerted. Of course, he wasn't there to see me. He was there for my little brother. Being the protagonist, Lung Ching Song's talent was so terrifying that even the sect leader wanted to snatch him away as a direct disciple. But Lung Ching Song refused. "Wherever my brother is, I am," he had said, hiding behind me again. That was the second time he'd spoken a long sentence. I felt a surge of pride. That was my boy. He really knew how to look out for his big brother. I looked at my socially anxious little brother with a face full of relief. A wasted gem. A wasted gem, the sect leader had lamented, walking away from our small peak in total disappointment. My own master just stood there, laughing triumphantly. I snapped back to the present. Lung Qing-song was already sitting at the table, clutching his sword. He hadn't eaten in 3 days. He started wolfing down the food like a starving animal. His killing intent hadn't fully receded yet, and sharp, oppressive sword chi still pulsed through the small courtyard. Across from him, Hu Tu was shaking like a leaf. The pressure Lung Qing-song gave off was too much for her. To her, my third senior brother was scary, but this new guy felt like he could end her life with a casual flick of his wrist. Grandpa, is the human world really this dangerous? She was probably thinking. I don't think I'm going to make it back alive. Beside her, Bai Feiyu watched Lung Qing-song with a heavy, serious expression. He was shocked that a teenager could exert such incredible pressure. He realized he had to work even harder. If he didn't, his status as a reincarnated ancient immortal would become a complete joke. Lung Qing-song didn't care about their inner turmoil. His eyes lit up when he saw the three-eyed bell chicken on the table. He reached out to grab the last drumstick. I slapped his hand away with my chopsticks and frowned. Did you wash your hands? Don't just sit down and grab food. The terrifying protagonist didn't argue. He obediently pulled his hand back and went to wash up. When he returned, I looked at the still trembling Hu Tu and offered a gentle smile. This is your second senior brother, Lung Qing-song. He's also my brother. Don't let the scary look fool you. He's actually surprisingly gentle. I was telling the truth. Even though he looked like a cold-blooded killer, I'd raised him. I knew he was just incredibly socially anxious. Hu Tu forced a weak smile, nodding to show she understood. Lung Qing-song looked at her, blinking in surprise. He managed to squeeze out one word. Who? Who what? The chicken is stewed perfectly. Just eat your food. I interrupted, stuffing the drumstick into his mouth to shut him up. Once dinner was over, everyone headed back to their rooms with their own thoughts. The only sound left was me shouting at Lung Qing-song. Get out. Don't bring your blankets in here. Find your own place to sleep, and stop trying to squeeze into my room. Hu Tu lay on her bed, feeling a massive sense of relief. Everything that happened today had blown her mind. Where exactly have I ended up? She remembered her grandfather's parting words. Child, you have the innate Tao body. Others won't see your true form, so you must never tell anyone your identity. It will bring a death sentence. She sighed. She couldn't even tell her senior brothers that she was actually a spirit fox. Her cute face crumpled into a frown. She had come to the Qingyun sect for a serious mission, but in just one day, she had felt the overwhelming power of the human race. If even a random small peak had monsters like this, how could the demon race ever hope to compete? The next morning, Hu Tu woke up early, still tossing and turning over the future of her people. She washed up and pushed open her door, only to see Bai Feiyu standing on top of a tree. Faint purple lights swirled around him like tiny snakes. It gave his righteous aura a strange, mystical edge. Senior brother Bai is as handsome as ever, she thought. Then she saw Lung Qing-song. The man who had terrified her yesterday was now shirtless, carrying a massive tree trunk into the yard. Under his cold, handsome face was a physique that looked like it had been carved from stone. Sweat and morning dew glistened on his skin. Suddenly, he didn't seem so scary. He's actually kind of perfect, she thought, her eyes wandering. Tu really likes her senior brothers. While she was busy fangirling, Lung Qing-song dropped the massive log. He raised his hand, and a clear chime rang out as an ancient longsword flew from his room into his grip. He took a breath, his eyes sharpening. With a flash like a falling star, he swung. A whirlwind of sword strikes enveloped the log. A second later, the sword was back in his hand. The massive tree trunk had been sliced into a pile of perfect wooden boards. Amazing swordplay, Hu Tu shouted, unable to help herself. Lung Qing-song glanced at her, then looked down and started gathering the boards. Second senior brother, what are you doing? She asked, walking over with her most charming smile. Lung Qing-song held a nail in his mouth. He had a board in one hand and a hammer in the other. He grunted out 2 words, fixing house. Hu Tu blinked. Then she remembered. When Lung Qing-song broke through his cultivation level yesterday, He had blown his own roof off. I had yelled at him to fix it today. She watched the peerless sword immortal transform into a roof carpenter without a hint of hesitation. He hopped onto the roof and started hammering away. It was surreal. A powerful golden core cultivator was actually following the orders of my ordinary self without question. While she was staring in shock, Chen Chongqing walked out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on a rag. He saw her and smiled. "Morning, junior sister," he said warmly. "The porridge is almost ready. Come help me bring it out." "Okay, third senior brother," Hu Tutu chirped, shaking off her confusion and running to help. I watched Hu Tutu walk toward the kitchen. She looked a bit hesitant, probably because Chen Chongqing always gave off a vibe that was hard to read, like he was smiling with his lips, but not his eyes. Still, he was her senior brother. She clearly figured he wouldn't hurt her for no reason. She stepped inside, rolled up her sleeves, and hopped over to his side. "Senior brother, is there anything I can help with?" Chen Chongqing turned to look at her. There was a strange, unreadable glint in his eyes. "Just get the bowls and chopsticks ready," he said softly. "Then take them outside." Hu Tutu nodded and skipped away to grab the dishes. As she turned her back, the light in Chen Chongqing's eyes intensified. I knew what he was thinking, though no one else did. In his mind, he was looking at the future nine-tailed sky fox, the empress of 10,000 demons. He was a man with a massive secret. He was a regressor. He had lived through a brutal apocalypse in a past life, struggling for over a decade before dying. Now that he was back, he was determined to reach the top. He had a plan for this life: stay low, don't take unnecessary risks, and surround himself with the legends of the future. And right now, those legends were all gathered on this tiny peak. "Senior brother, what's that smell?" Hu Tutu asked, wrinkling her nose. "Oh no, the porridge." Chen Chongqing snapped out of his thoughts and grabbed a ladle, stirring frantically. A burnt smell wafted from the pot. He frowned and tapped his finger against the charred millet porridge. A faint, dark glow flashed. When he pulled his finger back, the tip was completely black and burnt crisp. He stared at his finger with a clinical coldness. "This puppet body needs an upgrade," he muttered to himself. Then, he did something horrifying. Without a hint of emotion, he snapped the burnt finger off, tucked it into his sleeve, pulled out a brand new finger, and clicked it into place. A few minutes later, breakfast was served. Hu Tutu sat at the table, clutching a large steamed bun. She kept glancing back and forth between our other brothers. Bai Fei Yu was standing on a tree branch with his hands behind his back, looking like a sage, while Lung Qingsong was still straddling the roof like a common laborer. "Third senior brother," she whispered, her eyes sparkling. "Which one do you think is more handsome, Brother Lung or Brother Bai?" Chen Chongqing paused his chopsticks. He took great pride in his appearance, even if he rarely showed his true face to the world. "They're both all right," he said calmly. "About on par with me." Hu Tutu looked at his current, ordinary face and burst out laughing. "You're right, senior brother. You're very handsome too." Chen Chongqing stared at her for a moment, dazed. Her laugh reminded him of the first time he joined the sect. He remembered a man in green robes, me, pinning him down on a rock and ripping off his mask. I had laughed and told him he was too handsome to be hiding behind a mask all day. To him, that memory of me was bathed in a golden light. "Third brother? Why do you keep spacing out?" Hu Tutu asked, munching on her bun. He shook it off and smiled. "I was just wondering if our big brother is awake yet. Let me tell you, Tutu, don't ever provoke him when he has morning grumpiness." Hu Tutu put her bun down, her expression turning serious. "I don't mean to be rude, but do you guys really see him as the big brother? He's only at the 9th level of chi condensation. Compared to geniuses like you three, isn't he a bit ordinary?" Chen Chongqing's smile vanished instantly. He looked at her with a sternness that made her sit up straight. "Tutu, listen to me. I'm going to be blunt. Senior brother Ouyang is our big brother, our only big brother. If he wanted to be the sect leader of the entire Qingyun sect tomorrow, none of us would have a single objection." In his head, he added one more thing. "I would give my life to protect him." Just as the words left his mouth, the entire peak erupted. Purple light exploded from the horizon. Golden lotuses began to fall from the sky, dissolving into the earth. The very air began to hum with the sound of the great Tao. An epiphany? Someone is breaking through. Chen Chongxing stood up, his body glowing with a clear light. He immediately activated the hidden formations around the mountain, masking the divine phenomena from the outside world. On the tree branch, Bai Feiyu opened his eyes. Purple mist swirled in his pupils. He didn't move, but the sword intent radiating from him was so sharp that everything around him, the house, the grass, even the air, seemed to turn into a blade. Sword, Bai Feiyu whispered. Thousands of invisible swords hummed in response. The sky turned a deep yellow as celestial music and the roll of thunder echoed through the clouds. The world itself was celebrating his enlightenment. His cultivation sword. Inside him, his spiritual energy spun into a vortex, condensing into a brilliant, shimmering golden core. It is done. Bai Feiyu laughed, leaping into the sky. On the roof, Lung Qingsong dropped his hammer. His eyes burned with an intense fighting spirit. The path Bai Feiyu had chosen was the exact opposite of his own, and he couldn't resist the challenge. His own sword began to cry out, vibrating with his excitement. Lung Qingsong turned into a streak of black light and shot toward the clouds to meet him. One believed that everything in the world was a sword. The other believed only in the sword in his hand. Lung Qingsong was like a lonely, arrogant blade. He shot straight into the clouds. Haha, good timing. Bai Feiyu laughed heartily. He turned into a streak of white light and charged toward Lung Qingsong. He had just entered the golden core stage. His perfect sword heart was fully formed. Right now, he needed a hearty battle to vent the heroic spirit surging in his chest. Black and white streaks of light collided hundreds of times in the blink of an eye. They didn't use their sword intent. They only compared sword techniques. I knew that if they actually unleashed their full intent, the aftershocks of two golden core cultivators would tear my small peak apart. Even though they were only at the golden core stage, their skill was enough to kill a nascent soul cultivator with a single strike. If you can't kill enemies above your level, are you even a genius? The sky echoed with the metallic clashing of their blades. It was as dense and constant as the pulse of the universe. Below them, Hu Tutu stared up at the two powerhouses. Even though they were only trading moves, the pressure they leaked made her body go stiff. She couldn't move. The brilliant sword chi was so blinding, she didn't even dare to look at it directly. Looking at that dangerous, magnificent duel, Hu Tutu realized something terrifying. If she faced either one of them, they could slice off her foxtail in a single move. Was this really the golden core stage? Why did they feel more oppressive than the great demons of her own tribe? They were supposed to be at the same level as her. Grandpa, this isn't the same golden core I have, she screamed internally. Meanwhile, Chen Chongxing was glowing with a brilliant light. He was struggling to maintain the grand formation around our peak. To his array, the invisible sword intent from those two was like a series of tsunamis hitting ashore. He didn't want anyone from the other peaks to see what was happening here. Steady, don't go overboard. You bastards. Chen Chongxing cursed them in his head. These sword cultivators were all the same. Once they got excited, they ignored everything else. Just as Chen Chongxing was about to hit his limit, a roar of frustration erupted from my room. It's too early. Can't a man get some sleep? The moment my voice rang out, the phenomena in the sky froze. A wave of true chi exploded from my room like a tidal wave. It tore through the yellow mist and cleared the sky instantly. All the celestial music and divine light vanished in a heartbeat. The impact of my chi sent Bai Feiyu and Lung Qingsong flying. They were tossed through the air like rag dolls and smashed right out of the peak's boundaries. I walked out of my room, eyes red from lack of sleep. My clothes were a mess. I grumbled as I pulled on my outer robe and grabbed a folding paper fan. As soon as Lung Qingsong and Bai Feiyu flew back to the top of the peak, an invisible force grabbed them. They were frozen midair. They had been looking at each other with mutual respect and smiles, but now they were being dragged down to the ground. I marched up and smacked both of them on the head with my paper fan. Asterisk whack. Whack. Asterisk. You think you're pretty capable, don't you? I shouted, pointing my fan at them. Demolishing the house wasn't enough. Now you want to demolish the whole mountain? If the house is gone, you can both go sleep in the street. Lung Qingsong was used to me pointing at his nose and scolding him. He stood there honestly, letting me spray him with spit. Bai Feiyu, who had just polished his sword heart to perfection, just stood there smiling. My words went in one ear and out the other. He wasn't listening at all. Hututu watched me, the big brother who was currently acting like a street shrew, and remembered that mountain-crushing wave of chi from a moment ago. She had been paralyzed just by the pressure of the fight, yet I had blown them both away with a single shout. Was that really the power of someone at the 9th level of chi refinement? Those two had looked like gods of war a second ago, and now I was scolding them like little chicks. She looked at me in disbelief. She remembered what Qin Chongqing had said earlier. If I wanted to be the sect leader, none of them would object. If they don't object, she thought, then Tutu doesn't object either. Scolding was one thing, but breakfast was another. After I vented my morning rage, I looked at my two indifferent younger brothers and sighed. I told them to go eat. After the meal, Lung Qingsong went back to fixing his roof. Bai Feiyu returned to his tree to stabilize his new realm. Qin Chongqing headed down the mountain to reinforce his arrays. That left only me and Hututu. Since she arrived yesterday, Hututu had been in a constant state of shock. Now, she just felt numb. Whether it was the peerless Lung Qingsong, the talented Bai Feiyu, or the seemingly honest Qin Chongqing, they could all crush her. Even me, the one she thought was just a weak chi refinement disciple, could easily suppress the other two. The girl who was called the greatest genius of the Green Hills in 3,000 years felt like a joke. She stood next to me while I packed my things to head out. Her little face was drooping. "Big brother, am I really stupid and useless?" she asked timidly. I stopped putting a shovel into my back basket and looked at her. I reached out and rubbed her fluffy little head to comfort her. "Silly child, how could you be stupid? Big brother is so nice," Hututu smiled. She hugged my leg and rubbed her face against it. When she first saw me, she thought I was some kind of freak. But now, she felt a strange sense of affinity coming from me. I smelled like bamboo, just like her bed back home. Tutu likes Big Brother the most. I picked up the tiny Hututu and plopped her into the bamboo basket on my back. "Let's go," I said with a smile. "From today on, you're a member of our peak. Come with me to gather herbs." Tutu is the best at finding spirit grass," she chirped, full of energy again. I carried her toward the back of the mountain. The Qingyun sect occupied 72 peaks, but only the outer 12 were open to most people. The other 60 peaks made up the inner sect, circling the main Qingyun peak like a fortress. Each peak represented a different specialty: Sword Peak, Jade Maiden Peak, Spirit Beast Peak, and so on. Usually, those 60 inner peaks were forbidden zones. They were where the elder protectors lived in seclusion. To keep disciples safe and the elders undisturbed, the inner sect was strictly off-limits. If the muscleheads from the discipline peak caught you there, you'd face a world of physical and mental pain. But our peak was special. While the other 11 outer peaks were on the perimeter, we were tucked further inside. Technically, we were already inside the forbidden zone. Besides, why would I care about sect rules? I marched straight into the forbidden territory with Hututu on my back, explaining our daily chores as we went. Our peak, the little mountain peak, was different from the others. While everyone else focused on powerful cultivation techniques, we specialized in medicine. We were basically the designated infirmary for the entire Qingyun sect. Back in the day, my master, Hu Yun, was a legend. He was known as the guardian of women's health, a soft-spoken, sensitive soul who understood the hearts of female cultivators. But the disciples he recruited? We were all born with a rebellious streak. If we weighed 100 pounds, 99 of those pounds were pure defiance. None of us wanted to inherit his medical legacy. It broke his heart. He used to mope around, lamenting that his life's work would die with him. I wasn't exactly thrilled about it either, but as the big brother, I didn't have a choice. Master Hu Yun would corner me every single day, refusing to let go. After years of having his knowledge shoved down my throat, I ended up learning about 80% of it. The truth is, medical skills are pretty useless in a world of immortals. Cultivators don't get normal sick. If you catch a cold, you just circulate your chi once, and the virus is toasted. If you're poisoned or wounded, you go to Pill Peak. They have spirit pills that can bring a man back from the brink of death. If Pill Peak can't fix you, don't bother coming to see me. Just start picking out your coffin. My knowledge from my past life was even more useless here. I couldn't exactly walk up to a golden core expert and tell them, "That's not a core, it's a kidney stone. We need to cut it out." I couldn't tell a nascent soul cultivator, "You're not pregnant with a soul, that's a tumor. And since you're a man, it's definitely a medical anomaly. Trust the science, buddy. You're all crazy." So, medicine on our peak boiled down to three things: pulse reading, acupuncture, and prescriptions. But mostly, it was psychological counseling. That was the secret to my master's title. Those powerful female elders didn't need pills. They needed someone to listen to their problems. Unfortunately, I didn't inherit my master's high emotional intelligence. He was a professional simp in the most poetic way possible. He had a line for everything. "Don't complain, just come into my arms. I'm a 9, you're a 3, because I'm nothing without you." He was hundreds of years old. I honestly didn't know how he could say that stuff with a straight face. Whenever I went with him to Jade Maiden Peak to treat the lady disciples, he'd come back sighing, calling me a piece of rotten wood that couldn't be carved. His cheesy pickup lines made my skin crawl. But then I realized something. If life is this boring for immortals, maybe they actually liked the cheese. I decided to show him what real modern Riz looked like. I unloaded a barrage of internet pickup lines from my past life on him. His face went from contempt to shock, then to dead serious. He actually pulled out a notebook and started taking notes. Overnight, he declared I was his true successor. He grabbed his new Bible of pickup lines and ran off to travel the world, leaving the peak to me. As I walked the mountain path now, I plucked a blade of grass and stuck it in my mouth, giving a piece to Hututu behind me. I felt a smug grin crawling across my face. If there were 10 buckets of romantic talent in this world, I owned 12. The rest of the world owed me 2. I was the undisputed saint of love. "Big brother, you're smiling really creepily," Hututu's voice chirped, breaking my trance. I coughed, clearing my throat. "Tutu, you're too young. You wouldn't understand. Don't talk nonsense." "Oh," she whispered. She went quiet, looking out at the restricted area of the Chinyan sect. It really was a paradise. Mountains rolled into one another like waves. Stone walkways wound through the cliffs like ribbons of silk against the greenery. Deep valleys were filled with mysterious, swirling mists. It was like living inside a traditional ink painting. "It's so beautiful," Tutu murmured. "Even prettier than Qingqiu Mountain." Mentioning her home reminded her of why she was here. There was a legend about a great treasure of the Fox clan hidden within these mountains. A peerless genius, an 8-tailed spirit fox, had gone into seclusion here 10,000 years ago. He was the only one in history to reach that level, and he was hiding somewhere in the Chinyan sect. Tutu's mission was to find this senior and ask him how to fully awaken her own bloodline. The problem was, this senior had sworn an eternal grudge against Qingqiu Mountain and changed his appearance. Nobody knew where he was. Even the Qingyun sect just treated him like a powerful, mysterious guardian. Tutu's elders back home were miserable. The Fox clan had been weak for a long time. Because they were all naturally beautiful, they were often hunted or bullied by both humans and other demons. They desperately needed a powerhouse. The fact that their only hope hated them made the elders want to slap themselves. "I have to do this," Tutu thought, psyching herself up. "For the clan." She peeked over my shoulder from the basket. "Big brother, you spend a lot of time in the forbidden zones. Have you ever seen a really, really handsome cultivator?" Foxes are obsessed with beauty. She figured if this senior was around, he'd be impossible to miss. A really handsome one? I thought about it and shook my head. Nope. Nobody handsomer than my brothers, and they're already top tier. Besides, the people living back here are all old fossils who've been alive forever. How good-looking could they be? I stopped walking. I realized my little sister might have a shallow streak. I couldn't let her grow up thinking looks were everything, or some pretty boy would scam her blind. Tutu, liking beautiful things isn't a crime, I said, my voice turning serious and fatherly. But obsessing over them is a sickness. Some people are like gold-plated trash, shiny on the outside, but rotten in the middle. They might look good, but they're useless, I continued, leaning in close. Take your second senior brother, for example. He looks cool, right? Well, he was still wetting the bed when he was 10 years old. Tutu's eyes went wide. 10? I stopped doing that when I was 4. I chuckled, fueling the fire. Exactly. And little Bai? The perfect one? He used to be a total crybaby. He'd burst into tears over every little thing. Tutu started to giggle, her competitive streak finally kicking in. The intimidation she'd felt earlier from their power was vanishing, replaced by pure, childish glee. So I'm actually better than them, aren't I? Way better, I promised. Seeing her mood lift, I decided to go all out. I started spilling every embarrassing Black history detail I could invent or remember about those two rebels. I told her how they once forgot how to wipe their own butts and ran around the yard naked. I told her how they cried for master because the bathwater was too hot. I even told her about the time they had a contest to see who could pee the furthest and ended up soaking each other. Tutu's laughter echoed through the valley like a happy little hen. Meanwhile, back at the peak, Lung Ching's song was halfway up a ladder fixing his roof when he suddenly let out a massive sneeze. Over in a nearby tree, Bai Feiyu's leg buckled, and he nearly tumbled off his branch. They both looked at each other, narrow-eyed. They had the same thought. Is that kid talking trash about me again? How childish. Ignoring the psychic daggers my brothers were likely throwing my way, I led Tutu deeper into the forbidden zone. The scenery here was getting weird. Giant fish swam through the air between trees, mushrooms towered like skyscrapers, and white cranes danced in the clearings. We weren't walking anymore. I had managed to tame a massive white-striped tiger, and we were currently hitching a ride on its back. Tutu sat in front of me, swinging her legs. She was still on her secret mission. Big brother, she asked, trying to sound casual, what's your favorite kind of animal? I rubbed my chin, playing along. I'd have to say little foxes. Tutu spun around. Her face lit up with a surprise she tried desperately to hide. She quickly turned back, huffing softly. Humph. I like foxes too. But foxes might not like you back, big brother. I could see her cheeks puffing out with joy. I felt a wave of warmth. People always said a daughter, or in this case, a little sister, was like a warm coat for the soul. They weren't lying. Are there any foxes here? She whispered. Sure, I said. All sorts of beasts live in Qingyun Valley. Foxes too. Can we go see one? I looked at her hopeful expression. I knew she was probably homesick and wanted to see her own kind. Why not? I patted the tiger's flank and we hopped off. I sent the big cat away. No small animal would come near if the king of the jungle was hanging around. Once it was gone, I pulled a coil of rope out of my storage casket and started digging in the dirt. What are you doing? Tutu asked. Setting a trap, I muttered, focusing on the knots. I pulled out a leftover chicken leg I'd saved for lunch and started heating it up. I'm going to catch a fox for you. Tutu looked at the simple rope loop and then at me. I could tell she felt her intelligence as a fox was being insulted. Big brother, a trap that simple? No smart fox would ever fall for that. I gave the chicken leg a sniff, satisfied with the aroma, and placed it right in the center of the loop. I grabbed her hand and led her behind a thicket. Trust me, it works. I once caught the sect leader with this exact method. Tutu stared at me, her mind probably reeling from the scandalous mental image of the great sect leader caught in a rope trap. As soon as we were out of sight, a shadow crept out from the brush. It was a creature with gray fur, a bushy tail, and a face so square and vacant it looked like a walking meme. If I'd seen it, I would have recognized it instantly as a Tibetan sand fox. The fox circled the trap, a look of pure mockery in its deadpan eyes. A cheer-refining brat and a nine-tailed cub? It thought. Asterisk, they think they can catch me? I am an eight-tailed spirit fox. My wisdom is boundless. Asterisk. It looked at the chicken leg. The smell was incredible. Every fox has a weakness for chicken. I'm far too fast for a simple rope, it told itself. The fox reached out a paw. It grabbed the leg. In a flash, the rope snapped shut. The fox was fast. It was a powerhouse comparable to a Great Tribulation stage cultivator, and it easily snatched the meat and pulled back, ready to laugh. But then, the rope didn't just snap. It moved like a living snake. Before the fox could even swallow, the cord whipped around its neck. It tried to surge its internal power to break the binding, but its energy hit the rope and vanished like a stone in the ocean. Wait, the fox panicked. Asterisk, that kid wasn't lying. He really did catch the sect leader. Asterisk. It tried to use its innate magic to teleport, but a sudden numbness washed over its body. It slumped to the ground, its vision blurring. Damn it. The rope is a high-level treasure, and he poisoned the bait. As it lost consciousness, it felt the rope tightening around it in an incredibly embarrassing, hog-tied position. Asterisk, I'm a tribulation-grade expert. This shouldn't be happening. Asterisk. A few hundred yards away, Tutu paused. Big brother? Did you hear someone screaming? I was busy digging up a rare spiritual herb. You're probably just hungry. There's food in the casket. I'm not hungry, she insisted, though she immediately reached in and pulled out a roast chicken. She took a massive bite, her cheeks bulging like a happy hamster. Suddenly, the sky went dark. Tutu stopped chewing. She looked up, her eyes widening in terror. A massive, three-headed monstrous bird had appeared above us, its eyes glowing with a murderous, blood-red light. The terrifying pressure of a massive monster crashed down on us from above. Big brother, there's a giant bird in the sky. It looks really mean. Tutu stammered, pointing upward with a trembling finger. I carefully cradled the spiritual herb I had just unearthed. Hearing her frantic voice, I turned my head toward the sky. The three-headed bird filled my vision, its feathers dark and its eyes glowing with a sinister red light. My expression darkened as I took in the sight. This bird had awakened its bloodline power. It wasn't just a beast anymore. It had become a demonic calamity. Come here, Tutu. Get close to me, I commanded. Tutu didn't need to be told twice. She scrambled over and dove into the large bamboo basket I carried, sticking only her small head out to watch the sky with wide, terrified eyes. The bird was massive, nearly 20 meters long. All three of its heads stared down at us with pure malice. It had clearly picked us as its next meal. Tutu, I said, my voice calm despite the shadow looming over us. You've been eating roast chicken for 2 days now. Do you want to try the taste of roasted bird instead? Tutu didn't know exactly how strong I was, but after seeing me use a wake-up alarm to subdue my terrifying second and fourth brothers this morning, she was a believer. Her fear vanished, replaced by sudden confidence. Hey, you smelly bird, she yelled at the sky, her voice full of bravado. My big brother is a super powerful chi refinement expert. I felt a vein throb in my forehead. I knew she was trying to cheer for me, but hearing her brag about me being a chi refinement expert felt more like an insult than an encouragement. Even if it was technically true, I ignored her and looked back at the bird. A blue translucent screen flickered into existence before my eyes. Name, three-headed monstrous bird. Bloodline, failed awakening. Cultivation, nascent soul, level 6. Bone structure, 4. Charm, 1. Luck, 1. Special talent, none. Evaluation, an ant. Not worth a comment. Seeing the stats, I finally relaxed. It was just an ant after all. However, the bird seemed to sense my disdainful gaze. Its three heads swayed frantically, snapping upward before unhinging its jaws toward me. One head spewed a torrent of roaring flames. Another exhaled a violent, cutting wind. The middle head spat out a stream of nauseating, corrosive acid. The fire hit the acid, causing the flames to explode in intensity, and the wind fanned the inferno until the entire sky turned into a sea of fire. Oh, a trash bird that understands physics, I muttered, genuinely surprised by the elemental combo. But it was useless. I unhurriedly pulled a book from my robes and flipped through the pages. I quickly memorized the flow of spiritual energy required for the technique, tossed the book aside, and slammed my palms together. Water dragon, I roared. The spiritual energy within me, which felt like a vast, limitless ocean, surged instantly. Thick mist began to boil around me. With a deafening roar, a massive water dragon erupted from the ground. It grew larger as it rose, charging toward the sky with unstoppable force. The mist surrounding the dragon's body smothered the sea of fire instantly. The flames hissed and died, completely overwhelmed. The water dragon lunged forward, pinning the three-headed bird with a massive claw before snapping its jaws shut. The bird didn't even have time to scream before it was swallowed whole. The dragon lingered in the sky, swaying its body as if celebrating its own birth. Slowly, its watery eyes began to glow with a strange intelligence. A faint, majestic pressure, the true aura of a dragon, started to radiate from its scales. I frowned, watching the dragon. It was being awakened. I could feel my spiritual energy draining rapidly. Even though I had over 900 million points of energy and recovered it faster than I could spend it, this dragon was clearly trying to break free of my control. This always happened. Every time I used a technique, it eventually stopped listening to me and tried to become its own person. Vile creature. I cold snapped, raising my hand. Show your true form. I cut the connection to my spiritual energy. The moment the link snapped, the water dragon let out a mournful cry and dissolved into a heavy mist. The lifeless carcass of the three-headed bird tumbled out of the sky, crashing into the dirt. Tutu stared at me from the basket, her eyes sparkling like stars. She knew I was strong, but she didn't know I was this strong. That water dragon had felt so real that the pressure had almost made her wet her pants. "Big brother, you're amazing," she squealed, clapping her hands like a devoted little fan. I puffed out my chest and let out a loud, proud laugh. It felt good to be admired. Tutu scrambled out of the basket and ran toward the book I had tossed aside. She figured that whatever I had just read must be a supreme, god-tier manual. She picked it up like it was a holy relic, her eyes scanning the cover. The fundamentals of 5-element techniques, an introductory guide. Tutu's heart sank. She flipped through the pages. These were basic spells used by beginners in the chi refinement stage. You could find copies of this book in any common marketplace or mortal kingdom. It wasn't a secret manual at all. Wait, she thought, a light bulb going off in her head. Could the supreme technique be hidden within these ordinary pages? She nodded to herself, impressed by her own cleverness. She held the book over her head and ran back to me. "Big brother, your supreme, peerless manual." I was still basking in the glory of my victory when she shoved the introductory guide into my face. I coughed awkwardly and took the book back under her excited gaze. I usually used this book to prop up the leg of my wobbly table, but she didn't need to know that. The truth was, I could only learn chi refinement techniques. Even if they looked like world-ending spells when I cast them, they were still just basic spells at their core. High-level manuals looked like gibberish to me. And the worst part? Once I used a basic spell, I immediately forgot how to do it. If I didn't have the book to look at, I couldn't cast it a second time. "Big brother, was that the secret water shield technique of the Qingyan sect?" Tutu asked breathlessly. I cleared my throat and lowered my voice. "Of course. Your big brother is a legendary genius of the mystical arts." Tutu gasped in awe. Satisfied with the worship, I took her hand and started walking. "Come on," I said. "Let's go see if my trap caught us a fox." A few hundred yards away, the Great Tribulation-grade fox was hanging from a tree, tied up in an incredibly tight, humiliating rope bind. It looked utterly defeated. "I can't make a sound," the fox thought, staring blankly at the ground. "If the old monsters hidden in this sect see me like this, I'll never be able to show my face in the Fox clan again. My dignity as a Tribulation Transcendent stage powerhouse was officially dead." I couldn't make a sound. I tried to hypnotize myself into believing I was tied up on purpose, just for fun, but I didn't dare move an inch. Every time I twitched, the rope tightened, and those bells, those cursed, humiliating bells, dug deeper into my flesh. I was crying on the inside, but my face remained a blank, square mask of stupidity. Luckily, I was born with this dull, blocky face. Even as my soul shook with rage and shame, I looked as calm as a stone. "Big brother, can I learn this high-level magic later?" Tutu's voice drifted over from the distance. I panicked and did the only thing I could. I played dead. "Oh, Tutu, you really did catch a fox," I said, walking up to the trap. I blinked, staring at the creature hanging there. What the square-faced Tibetan fox? Why is there one of these in the middle of a forest? I stepped forward to check it out, but then I paused. A translucent screen flickered into my vision. Name: Huyen. Species: 8-tailed spirit fox. Cultivation: 1st level, Tribulation Transcendent stage. Bone structure: 8. Charm: 0.5. Luck: 1.5. Talent: wood attribute bonus. Unique skill: 8-tailed spirit fox form. Evaluation: looks aren't everything, but in this case, they're about 80% of the problem. My eyebrows twitched. A Tribulation Transcendence fox? I looked at Tutu, who was standing beside me with a puzzled expression. Was this some kind of secret bodyguard for my little junior sister? Had the demon race really reached the point where they sent world-class powerhouses to watch over a little girl? But Tutu looked genuinely confused. She clearly didn't recognize him. Big brother, is that really a fox? It's so ugly, Tutu said, pointing a finger at the hanging beast. I nodded slowly. It's a type of fox. A bit on the unattractive side, sure, but definitely a real fox. The fox's eyes bulged. If he weren't paralyzed, I'm sure he would have torn us both to shreds for insulting his looks. It was clear he hated people talking about his face. I was a little worried that he might go on a rampage once I let him down. I wasn't scared for myself, but I had to protect Tutu. Tutu, stand back a bit. I'm going to let him down, I told her. She obeyed, and I walked up to the fox. I began untying the rope. This wasn't just any rope, it was the binding thread my master gave me. He told me that as long as you keep pumping chi into it, it can trap even an immortal. The best part was that it had no level requirement. Even a mortal could use it, which made it the perfect tool for someone like me who stayed at the chi refinement stage. The moment the rope fell away, the fox's eyes snapped open. The air around us turned heavy, freezing in place. A terrifying pressure, the aura of a tribulation transcendence master, slammed down on the clearing. Kit, you dare. Quiet, I snapped. Before he could finish his threat, I grabbed him by the throat and slammed him face first into the dirt. Ow, stop. It hurts, the fox cried out. Keep your voice down. I hissed into his ear, pinning him firmly. Don't think I don't know who you are, Huyen. If you try anything, I'll skin you and turn you into a winter coat. Huyen froze, his face pressed into the mud. He was utterly bewildered. How did this human kid know his real name? More importantly, why was he, a peak-level cultivator, pinned to the ground like a common stray? He tried to circulate his internal energy to blast me away, but his meridians felt like they were under a mountain. My basic chi was suppressing his entire cultivation base. He started panicking. He was a tribulation transcendence master, one of the strongest beings in existence. And yet, in front of this teenager, he couldn't even lift a finger. Is this kid some 10,000-year-old monster playing human? He wondered. I thought I was the one playing pig to eat the tiger, but I've walked right into a dragon's den. He decided right then that I must be an ancient entity from a realm beyond his understanding. Senior, he squeaked, his voice trembling. I understand. Please, have mercy. Senior, I was a bit confused by the sudden change in attitude, but I rolled with it. I won't make things hard for you, I said. Since you're at this level, you're probably a secret guardian for the Qingyun sect anyway. Play along with the little fox girl behind me, and I'll let you live. If you don't, I'll scatter your soul to the winds. I didn't actually know what a soul looked like or how to scatter one, but it sounded intimidating. If he resisted, I'd just burn him to ashes. Tribulation stage? Big deal. I'd fought plenty of hidden elders around here before. I picked the fox up by the scruff of his neck and walked back to Tutu with a smile. See, Tutu? This is a Qingyun fox. I swung him back and forth in front of her. To prove he was real, I accidentally flipped him over, exposing, well, everything. It was a bit much for a young girl to see. Tutu let out a piercing scream and covered her eyes. I suddenly remembered that Tutu was also a fox. That was definitely an awkward moment. Huyen looked like he had lost the will to live. His dignity was gone. His reputation was gone. He had been exposed in front of a junior of his own race. He stared up at the sun with dead eyes, thinking about how bright and cold the world felt. Big brother, he's so ugly, Tutu whispered, peeking through her fingers. Then she giggled. But he's kind of ugly cute, like a little stuffed toy. She reached out and poked his fur. She had never seen a fox like this back at the Fox Clan. It was a novelty. Huyan's ears twitched. In 1,000 years, no one had ever called him cute. The weird aesthetic of the square-faced fox seemed to hit a chord with Tutu. She reached out her arms. Big brother, let me hold him. I gave Huyen a warning glare, then handed him over. Tutu struggled to lift him. He was almost as big as she was, but she hugged him tight. She rubbed her face into his soft fur, feeling a strange sense of kinship through their bloodlines. The more I look at him, the cuter he gets, she chirped, treating him like a new toy. I watched her, unable to understand her taste in pets. But then, she looked at me with big, pleading eyes. Big brother, can we take him back to our peak and keep him? I hesitated. This was a Tribulation Transcendence 8-tailed spirit fox. Usually, experts like him were treated as honored guests or supreme elders at the world's greatest sects. You didn't just keep them as house pets. It was a massive insult to his status. I'm willing. A voice echoed directly into my mind. It was Huyen. He was practically begging me to let him stay. I stared at the square-faced fox in Tutu's arms, then back at his dead fish eyes. I was genuinely stunned. He's one of my people, Huyen's voice echoed in my head. I want to see why a demon cultivator from my clan would come to the Qingyun sect. Besides, in 1,000 years, she's the first one to ever call me cute. I looked at him with pure suspicion. That sounded like a pretty weak excuse. I couldn't tell what this high-level spirit fox was actually thinking. Since I was just a lowly chi refining stage cultivator, I didn't know fancy tricks like voice transmission. I could only glare at him, trying to read his soul. Huyen had his own hidden agenda. Deep down, he felt a strange sense of belonging. He had grown up hated and mocked by the Fox clan because of his unique, square face. Foxes obsessed over beauty like it was their lifeblood. In a world of stunning men and women, he was a freak. Now, suddenly, a member of his own race was hugging him with genuine affection. It made the icy walls around his heart crack just a little. But there was a bigger reason. Huyen was at the Tribulation Transcendence stage, the very peak of this world. He was standing at the finish line of cultivation. Yet, he knew that since ancient times, the path to true immortality had been cut off. There was nothing left for him but to wait for death. Then he met me. He sensed that his chance at reaching the heavens was tied to me and this little girl. If she wanted to keep him as a pet, he wasn't going to complain. Dignity? A godlike expert's pride? Please. He'd already let me look at his private parts. He didn't have any dignity left to lose. Since Tutu was begging and the fox wasn't resisting, I didn't have a reason to say no. The only risk was that he might try to possess Tutu's body to steal her innate Tao body. But I figured it was better to keep a potential threat where I could see him. If he tried anything funny with her soul, I had a couple of brothers back at the peak who were masters at messing with spirits. I made up my mind. The fox made up his. Tutu beamed, clutching her new pet as we started the trek back to our mountain. The early autumn wind felt cool and refreshing. I reached out, using a bit of true chi to pluck 2 spirit fruits from the trees. Tutu and I munched on them as we walked. My bamboo basket was heavy with the heart and core of that 3-headed monster bird, along with the herbs we'd gathered. Tutu hummed a nursery rhyme, her voice echoing through the mountain paths. Everything felt peaceful. Suddenly, a streak of gold light shot across the sky. It zipped down and hovered right in front of my face. It was a paper crane. I held out my hand, and it landed softly, unfolding into a yellow sheet of paper. I saw the signature and slapped my forehead. I'd completely forgotten. I hadn't finished the paperwork for Tutu to officially join the sect. The letter was from Qingyun Peak, the sect's main headquarters. Whenever a new inner disciple joined, they had to go there to light a life lamp. It wasn't a way to control them. It was for protection. As long as the lamp burned, the sect knew the disciple was alive. If the flame flickered or grew dim, it meant they were in danger. The guards at the main peak would then use secret arts to track them down and send a rescue team. It was one of the perks of being in a great saint sect. Once the lamp was lit and the jade token was issued, you were officially on the family tree. The paper crane was a reminder that I needed to bring my junior sister in to finish the process. The last time I'd done this was 5 or 6 years ago when Bai Feiyu joined. I used my finger as a pen and my chi as ink. I scribbled 3 messy words on the paper. I got it. I injected some energy into the paper, and it folded itself back into a crane. It circled me happily, chirping with newfound life, before flying off toward the main peak. We made it back to our small peak just in time for dinner. Tutu was so excited she formally introduced her new pet to everyone. She called him Handsome. To Lung Qing Song, Bai Feiyu, and Chen Changsheng. This fox was just a weird-looking animal. They figured Tutu was just homesick. They all knew she was secretly a fox, even if they didn't say it out loud. Huyen was smart, too. Even though my brothers were monsters in their own right, they hadn't fully grown into their power yet. A tribulation-level expert like him could hide his true aura from them easily. After dinner, everyone headed to their rooms. Tutu climbed into bed, hugging the giant, square-faced fox close to her chest. Handsome, she whispered into his fur. I'll tell you a secret. I'm a fox, too. Once I figure out how to fully wake up my bloodline, I'll take you back to the Fox Mountains. We can live with all the other foxes. Huyin didn't say anything. He just closed his eyes and let the little girl fall asleep.